Happy Saturday, everybody. It's your girl Petraa here on Highway 6 to Africa. Welcome, everybody. I am joined with TyB and Ron. And thank you for joining us on the Highway 6 to Africa. So make sure you strap up, put your seatbelt on, buckle in, and we have a wonderful show for you guys today. So before we get into our wonderful guest for this week, I definitely want to say hello and shout out my wonderful co-hosts. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing fine here on the western side of Canada. It's a half decent day, no rain yet today, so I have nothing to complain about. And as I said to TYB off the air prior to the show, even if I had a complaint, nobody listened anyway, so it doesn't matter. How you doing, TYB?
I'm doing great, Ron.
Sorry to make you laugh. Sorry.
He says nobody listens. So we are listening. Well, I'm doing great. It's been a very wonderful week. It was beautiful in the afternoon. The sun was smiling at us in Toronto. All of a sudden, it looks a little bit offline, but and it's a little bit chilly. I mean, where I am, I don't know how it is over where Petraa is. We are in Toronto, or Greater Toronto area. But apart from that, everything is good, and we hope to have a very good show because every Saturday when we come here, it's so excitement. I'm always, itching to come on the program to see my family right here. Petraa?
Yes, TRB. I feel the same way, Definitely want to shout out the Love Bay family to our loyal listeners all over the world. We have people listening in countries all over. Let's shout some out, Definitely shout out the UK, the USA, the Caribbean, Africa, Egypt, Italy, Spain. Yeah, we definitely want to shout out Europe right now because I know they've been going through a blackout. So we definitely want to shout out everybody over there that lost power. Our thoughts and our prayers are definitely with you guys. I don't know if Ron and TYB want to jump in and just make some reference to that.
Yeah, are you referring to Spain and Portugal there? That power outage?
Yeah, Spain, Portugal, parts of France.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was.
Make reference to that.
All I can say is I have not heard any response as to what the cause of it is yet. I think they have a whole bunch of people that are back on. Most people are back on now, but as per the cause, enlighten us, folks.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, TP?
It reminds me of what we went through some years back. Yes, this it's not pretty at all. I think it went through about maybe 4 or 5 days, and I had to walk from my workplace downtown Toronto. I walked for close to about 10 kilometers before I got home.
Oh, wow.
Everything was so dark. And the most interesting thing and the most saddest thing about it is that those are people, people who camp, who go on camping spree, like Ron, right? You're able to survive. You're able to, experience things that you've experienced before in the wilderness, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was pitying newborn babies, new mothers and stuff like that, because everything was just gone. No traffic lights, gas stations were off, and telephones, everything. So, I know what they are going through, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. It's not pretty. Nothing works for you. Not your phone, not your, those elevators and stuff, everything. Restaurants, everything came, to a standstill. So I know what they are going through, as well as a lot of people who were in Toronto at the time. It started from Toronto to upstate New York to so many different places. The grid, everything went down. So it's quite serious, quite serious. Petraa?
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely a serious thing, and there's even like another blackout in Toronto like last week for a couple of hours, myself and my son actually got to experience that. So, and that was I don't want to say a bit scary, but we got a little taste of what they got in Europe because it was like pitch black. you know.
Mhm.
In the East End, I think almost 15,000 people, maybe close to 20,000 people were affected. You know, that was on, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere around that time, you know. So it
Wow.
was all quiet, not even the street light was working, you know. Luckily I had some charge on my extra battery pack, you know, so and my computer was pretty charged, you know. So but yeah, we just hope that nothing like that happens again, you know. And for it to be countrywide is a bit shocking, you know. Like Ron said, we don't know the cause of it, but I think countrywide is a bit shocking because where do you go for refuge, you know? Like where do you go, you know? Like where we were, like at least if I knew, if I drove maybe half an hour, you know, even maybe 50 minutes, I could probably get some light, you know. So that would be some level of normalcy until everything got back on. But an entire country, you know, that is a lot, you know. And it just kind of goes to show that nowadays it's like you don't know what can happen. And I think since COVID, I think since 9/11, it's shown you that you don't know what can happen. I think from that it kind of sparked, you know,
Yeah.
that, you know, like after that it's like, okay, we kind of thought, okay, you know what, you know, hopefully we're not going to experience something of that magnitude. And then COVID, you know, and then, you know, like and the blackout, like TyB mentioned, you know what I mean? It's just, so I think you just have to just always just kind of just be aware of your surroundings and just pretty much just be prepared, you know, for anything really.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
shows how vulnerable all of us are.
Mhm.
See, we
Yeah.
become dependent on one particular thing, and as soon as it goes boom, it's like your car. Everything on your car is very important. It's there for a reason. And if it goes off, no, boom, you're stuck. So it tells us that as humans, we have to be very prepared, you know, and be prepared for whatever happens. It's like traveling in the winter. No, they tell you you have to have your candle, you have to have a mattress, a blanket, you have to, you know, things like that. But then when it comes to electricity, there's no way around. Because
Mm.
back then, I quite remember people had generators, but you can run the generator for about, say, 10 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. And when you run out of it, what do you have? You can't go and buy gas. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So the whole thing is that I think it opens the door to invest into what would I say, solar energy and stuff like that. So that that's
Mhm.
something. But then humans as we are, we always wait for the last time. We don't prepare for nothing until it hits. Oh my God! I should
I
have
should have.
yes. And they say that had I known, it's always at last. So you know what? I mean, it's quite um, a very difficult situation for the people who are going through that in Spain. And is it Portugal too?
Spain, Portugal, parts of France,
Mhm. Mhm.
you
Oh
know,
wow,
I think maybe parts of Morocco too. So
wow, wow.
yeah.
Then if there are concerts there, I hope they find some generators and you know get people to go out there to to perform because you know what, I'm being biased right here because I'm an artist.
Mhm. Yeah. I know in our area we get outages every once in a while. We have a scheduled one at the end of May,
Wow.
though we have purchased a generator. But unless
Good.
you have your own house, like we have our own house, you can't really start up a generator if you're say living in an apartment or something like
Mhm.
that. So it's nice that we do have our own house, a separate dwelling from everybody else. And so a generator helps. We live across from the hospital, and we know as soon as the power goes out, instantly the generator at the hospital starts up too.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah, every hospital I think is set up that way so that if power outages go, then the generator automatically starts. It's being prepared though. You don't always know when it's going to happen, and so it's
Mhm.
nice we have gas ready for our generator if we need to, and when it goes out, you just say, okay, do we want to start it up or not? So, and it helps. You get your cell service at least, and we can turn on the TV if we want. Oh yes, the tough things in life that you miss. Of course, the fridge and freezer; those are probably the most two important things.
Yeah, Petraa, let me drop this one in. Last week we had a very great time with Jeff Berlin, and it was such an eye opener for. It didn't hit me until after the show, and I went back to read about who he is, and boy, we dealt with one of the top musicians on the globe. That was great, Ron.
Yeah, well, I know it well. I've known about Jeff Berlin for probably 30 or 40 years. He is a monster, not just in playing, but yeah, his playing ability is unbelievable. He's schooled, and who he's played with is unreal. There's probably not many that are, especially in the jazz genre, who he has, or the fusion genre, who he has not played with. However, the only side about him that he's known for, and he'll be the first to admit it, he can be somewhat argumentative. He owns up to that. He'll say it. He says it. You know, I'll be argumentative. I don't mind. But what he's tried, what we talked about more, which was great. One thing I said to him, I'm glad we didn't start talking about your gear, what you use on stage, you know, and stuff like that. It was more about the education of music and understanding it, and that he thrives on that, and getting people doing the right things. He was talking about scales the other day, and there's a scale called the chromatic scale. And he said, that's useless. Don't even worry about chromatic scales. He said, learn things like major scales, of course, and your mixolydians and your minor scales, and you know, your jazz scale, or not jazz scales, but your blues scales and stuff like that. Those will serve you much more than a chromatic scale. Chromatic scale is just all the notes. If you play all the white notes on a piano all the way up from one octave to another, that's a chromatic scale. And he said, that doesn't help you at all for harmonies. So, and he speaks a lot on harmonies, because every note that he hits, he wants it to count as being a note that's means something, rather than just playing a whole bunch of flashy notes. The guy is monstrous for speed, but that's not his whole center of focus. His focus is putting out good music. He's got an album coming out, and I know that it's going to be killer. He's you know, when you play with guys like the Brecker brothers, who are the top, probably the best horn section, I'll say, in the world, one of the best, tightest groups. He's played with them so many times. A caller asked if he played with Frank Zappa. He goes, yeah, I played with Frank Zappa, except he fired me because I wanted too much money, because it was going to take too much work to learn all this stuff for his upcoming, either his concert or for an album. He said, so I asked for more, and he fired me. So he just sort of shuffled that off, like, oh, whatever, it's not a big deal. So it was good. It was a really good conversation. I was glad we had it.
Yeah, he was. I
tuned in.
Very, very outspoken, and he gave us more education. We got a lot of things about him, and he was so gracious, and what I expected was, like, great. Because when we started talking about who he has performed with, they were, whoa, the who is who in the music business. And then, as far as I've read, he's one of the top 3 bass players on the globe.
Yeah.
And, oh yes, and he says he's still learning. My God,
yeah,
he's still learning. And Petraa, such a wonderful man. I mean, we hope to bring him back again. You know,
I think that's the thing about him, is that, and I take from this, and I swear by this too, and that is, you're always learning. If the day I stop learning, please pack me away in a coffin, please, because I want to keep learning. And that's how you get better as a musician. You just keep learning. You'll never know everything. And I don't want to know everything, because that means that there's nothing left to learn. And learning is fun, and it's enjoyable.
That's right.
Exactly.
Petraa, it seems Mr. Garfield is right here with us. So.
Greetings, Sampalue. How are you?
Yeah, man, good, man. How about yourself?
Good. It's a pleasure to have you here on Highway 6 to Africa with myself, Ron, and TyB. It's a pleasure.
Blessed.
Yeah. So where are you joining us from? Could you just share with the listeners where you're joining us from?
I'm joining from Kingston, Jamaica.
Nice,
Whoa.
nice. You have to send us some of that warm weather, some of that heat.
Yeah, it's warm, but at this present time, we have some overcast conditions, so we can expect rain any time now.
Okay, okay. Yeah, same here too. A little overcast, but at least you guaranteed the sun.
Exactly.
Exactly. So thank you for
Yeah.
joining us on Highway 6 to Africa. And I definitely want to start by asking you like a signature question that we love to ask all of our guests, just so our listeners all over the world can just get to know you. So can you just share with our listeners who is Sampalue, and let me know if I'm pronouncing it in the right way?
Yeah, man. Sampalue. Yeah.
Sampalue. Okay, great. Yeah. So can you share who Sampalue is to
Well,
our audience, our listeners?
Sampalue has been a producer from 1989. Were instrumental in Lady Star's career. Our first two albums, Find a Good Man and Give Me a Reason, excuse me, was produced by myself and the company. And so we have been in the business for the longest while. My dad is also a record producer. A man by the name of Phil Petraa has produced a great many hits on the reggae scene, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been producing for a while, but for the last 6 years, I've been transitioning to being an artist, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did an album in 2019 called Straight Outta Anatown, and then because of the COVID situation, we didn't do much promotion, but now we have just launched a new album called Unmistakable. And so that one was released at the 4th of April, you know what I mean? And so we're from a musical family, trying to make the best of what we're doing now, you know what I mean? Everybody keep asking me why, I took so long, but, when you do have an appointment with time, you will never be late, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, and when you come forth, that's the time the Almighty has blessed for you to come forth. So we're here alive and kicking, and that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I totally believe in that. I totally believe in divine timing, So
Exactly.
I has to direct an audio steps, and then you just take action at that appointed time.
True.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure many people are wondering too, why the name Sampalue? Like, what does it mean? Like, does it have any special meaning? Like, why that name for you?
Well, I got this name from when I was a kid. I remember the conversation about the name is that a friend of my dad went to watch this African movie, you know what I mean? And he said what he saw was the same thing that was happening in my family, which was my dad and my mom was always working together, trying to make everything work.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the movie, there was this young man from the same kind of parenting, they're doing everything to support each other. And this kid was actually, like they said, it was like basically the first time, he was very smart. And so, the guy was telling my dad, this is what I heard, that I want to give your son a pet name, and he was explaining. And Sampalue made a man of stature and intelligence, you know what I mean? And so we tried to work our name, not in any negative form, you know what I mean, but as best as we can, you know what I mean, staying positive and doing whatever we deem positive. Not for just ourselves, but for others, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. That's great. So you crown the name Sampalue,
And the guy was saying, now that we are here, it is an African movie.
Exactly. Like a
You know what I
king.
mean? Yeah.
That's amazing. And then I want to ask you one more question before I pass you on to Ron to ask a question. So why now with the music? Like I know and we're gonna go into more of the many different talents you have within the music, but I know you were a producer, as you mentioned, for artists like Lady Saw and many other acclaimed artists in reggae, you know?
Yeah.
But why the transition now from production to being an artist?
Well, to me, excuse me, I have a lot to say, you know what I mean? Because we've been writing songs, and I've written songs for Dennis Brown. I actually the album with Dennis Brown. I have done an album with Jenna, which is to be released. And so we have written songs for a lot of folks. And I know I felt it was the time for me to step up, to say what I have to say for myself, than just passing it on to other people, you know, to communicate to that with, you know, with everybody else. And so I figure the timing for me is just the timing that was set, you know, without I even know that this is the time for me, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, like we said, the timing is just the timing. I don't know why is it now, but you know, we are here and we are the best use of what we have now. You know what I mean, which is life. And so we can express ourselves from this point of view.
Most definitely. Like you said before, you know, it's divine timing, you know, this is the time, so just go release the music and let the world hear your voice, you know.
Exactly.
Amazing. Ron?
Hey, Sampalue, I'm glad you explained to us why it took so long from 2019 to 2025 to come up with your next album. So it's your unmistakable album, and it feels like it's a very personal and purposeful and personal project. So what was the emotional or spiritual spark that inspired the album?
Well, you know, there's so many events. If you listen to the album, there's so many events that we have written about. There's an event that I know still I'm going in where Gaza, you know, Israel is today. There's a song that we wrote about black and white, and it's not just black and white; it's about human beings. You know what I mean? Because I was watching the news, I keep seeing people just bombing people, and people were confused as to where to go. You know what I mean? At one point, go this way and come back this way, and you know what I mean? It was one of the saddest times I've seen, and so that song it featured Jayut, you know, was one of the reasons why I wrote that song. The first song, All Things Bright and Beautiful, I remember just playing around, and you know, the vibe came to me about being grateful for all the things I've done, you know, for all the things that I have achieved, you know, in my time. And so I wrote that song as to giving thanks, you know. So there's a few events that actually, there's one with a similar theme as to black and white, but it was based on the fact that there was this major incident going on in America with the Black Lives Matter movement. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to lend my voice as an artist, as a writer, to support, you know, the movement. You know what I mean? And you know, and so if you listen, there's most of the songs is all about a story. You know what I mean? It's all about a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've described this as a transformational music journey. What transformation did you undergo while creating it?
Excuse me, can I say that again?
Sure. You've described this as a transformational journey. What transformation did you undergo while creating it?
Well, at one point we were somewhere else, you know what I mean, in our mind, you know. And I grew up in a place that is called Anatown, and it's part of the West Kingston area, you know. And there was a lot of shooting, a lot of people died. We were part of living there, you know what I mean, and we experienced certain things. And so I wanted to move away from that, and moving away from that is also encouraging some other people that we can still live in an area, you know, we can still live through a situation and still not get involved. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to make that separation, and at the same time, I wanted to be someone who would have convinced, you know what I mean, some other people said, look here, we can step aside from that and we can stay positive. So that is where I basically transformed from being part of, you know what I mean, being there, see what's happening. And, you know, we still never tried to get involved too deep, you know what I mean? But we were part of the system there. And so we wanted people to know that, listen, you can be there and be somewhere else in your mind and create some other events to really inspire some other people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. TyB, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Sampalue. Welcome to the program. I will take you to your area of production as a producer. What role does a music producer play in the life of a musician?
Well, depending, because everybody think different. What I normally do is to gather the musicians for a particular song. If say I'm thinking about a song that I want it to be something more cultural in terms of probably some African drums and all of that. What we normally do is to sniff out which one of the drummers would be suitable for this song, which one of the guitarists would be suitable for this song. You know what I mean? So then it would be your responsibility as a producer to organize that with a musician, because sometimes we use different musicians for different songs. You know what I mean? So your role as a producer is to get everybody who you think would best suitable for playing this piece of music, you know, as getting together, you know what I mean? And so we're all responsible for putting all the musicians and instructing them as to what we would love them to play. You know what I mean? If you hear a particular riff, you can say, okay, I would like to hear something like that. You know what I mean? So we are responsible for just organizing, you know, musicians as to what we want them to play.
And as a follow-up, what do you expect of the musician? How do you select a musician and say, aha, you know what? I see Ron. Ron has something that I would like to, you know, sort of produce. So,
well, you know, well, what I do, I'm always listening to previous stuff. You know what I mean? And so I would just say we have, like I said, something African. You'd want to listen and to ask who played that, you know, before me, who played that, who played that song, who is a drummer who played on that song, who is a guitarist who played on that song. So then you would have information that you can actually sift out and say, okay, this is what we want. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you have a song and you can have a happy song and you can't basically put a sad beat to a happy song. So you have to find the people who play that happy song to create that synergy, you know what I mean? So even what is going on in your mind would be a transformation to these musicians. Okay, so this is what I would like. This is the kind of drum I would like, you know what I mean? This is the kind of keyboard tone I'd like, you know? But on the other hand, you still have people who just leave it up to the feel of the musician. So when they come into the studio and say, okay, I want a rhythm, I like to have something similar to this. They just play, you know what I mean? And so you have people who can do that, and then some people who actually instruct the people they must know what to do, you know, as a producer.
So in this particular case, so you produce the album yourself?
Yes, I actually put the musicians together for the different songs. I must say, a friend of mine who is one of the best producers in Jamaica, Clive Hunt, I'm always in the studio listening to his work, you know what I mean? And so sometimes I ask for advice, and sometimes I ask for assistance, you know what I mean? And you know, we try to get the brightest mind together for whatever you want to do in the studio.
Yeah, you answered the question that I was going to my follow-up question. So I'll rest my case as Petraa.
Amazing.
Blessed.
That's awesome. So yeah, Sampalue, I want to ask you, what is your earliest memory of when you fell in love with the music? Like, please share that with us.
Well, like I said, my dad is a producer. I mean, he's still alive. He's not actually producing now. Excuse me, but he has been a producer for the longest while. And I remember when I started, I think it was 1978. I started going to Woolman's. I passed my common entrance and started going to Woolman's. And so, as a part of your holiday, you know what I mean, I would have gone to his record store in downtown, you know what I mean? And so I was there listening, I was there selecting to, you know what I mean, where we meet a few different artists. And so I was inspired by that, you know what I mean? Because I know my dad has been producing for the longest while, long before me, long before I was born. But at the time when I actually got into the music by listening to, you know what I mean, and learning the different things, because he also had a distribution. So at some point I was responsible for making sure each box that has 25 records at a time, I have to make sure that each box has the right amount of records, you know what I mean? So we're learning bookkeeping at the same time where we learn, you know, where we listen to the music, you know? And so I grew up when I started producing in 89. I did my first tape show called Reggae My Life. And then in 1991, I actually started a record store, you know what I mean? So I was trying to follow in the same footstep that I saw my dad, you know what I mean? He had record distribution, and he also had a record store, you know? So I wanted to follow that pattern.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love to hear like the history, like just the story, of why everybody falls in love with music, and yours is really great that you want to just continue on your dad's legacy, and that to me is true generational wealth, is that when you can plant seeds, of skills, of inspiration, hope, and that can transcend onto the next generation and onto the next generation. That's the real wealth, and you're an example of that.
And you know what? Just to add something to that, I remember while I was going to high school, right? There was this guy that we were in class with. He's one of the Azans in Jamaica. And so this family, one of the wealthy family, here. And I remember one day I went to accounting class because I couldn't find it for a while. The school tried to implement some changes, because at one point it was either science or arts. You know what I mean? So they were trying to mix it up for everybody to get what they wanted. And I remember going to class on that particular day, and this subject was being introduced to us, And so the guy was telling the teacher that, "Miss, you're making a mistake." And she said, "Where?" And then he got up and he went up to the blackboard, showing her where the mistake was. Use the dust and rub it out and actually correct it. And I said, "Wow." I said, "This proved to me that this family is culturing the next generation, you know what I mean, to come and play, to make sure that whatever happened, we have a legacy of what we started, you know what I mean, creating generational wealth, So that is something that has stuck with me for the longest while. And we're living in a world now where most of the kids just want to do what they want to do. But I keep telling people, if you go in America and you see a fireman, trust me, chances are he's probably the third or the fourth generation of firemen. You know what I mean? And so we have to culture that kind of behavior. I mean, sometimes some of us has to step away and venture into something different, because I have a son now he's into music, but not really into music. He's into music just because he know that I like music. You know what I mean? And so he has gone to learn to play instrument, but he has graduated now as a lawyer. You know what I mean? And so, you know, at the end of the day, he's still close to what we're doing because we have representation. You know what I mean? And so that is good. Yeah, you have representation.
Yeah. But he's also still, you know, embracing your legacy that was like a seed planted by your father. So that's 3 generations there of musical wealth passed down to
and
your
that is
son.
most definite. That is most definite because what? Every time I send an email, he's responsible for sending it.
Amazing.
Every email that comes to me, he's responsible to receive it. So he's having a record of everything that I'm doing at this present time.
Yeah, I love
just
that.
to make sure that in the case of anything, he has information of what I was doing or what was done. You know, so that's his role.
That's amazing. I love that. So I want to ask you another question before I pass it on, because I could ask you so many questions, but
Go ahead.
okay, great. So I wanted to ask you, so now we spoke about the legacy that was planted, you know, like pretty much just from your memories, just from your dad, and like you living on that legacy in your way, and then also your son, you know, but I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper with you. What message do you hope to leave behind when it comes to your legacy on a whole with the music and production?
That people is more important than everything else. You know what I mean? I truly believe that whatever was done before me, before us, long that 100 years ago, that at the end of the day, we are all here, and we need to coexist. That is the biggest thing for me. You know what I mean? We need to have a level playing field. Everybody to accept the same standard, the same quality of life. You know what I mean? That the person who sees themselves as the highest, we want to be on that level to achieve that. You know what I mean? So the basic fundamental rights, the basic of everything must be given to each and every individual on this planet.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's most important.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's beautiful. You can really hear that through your music, you know, and I'm sure like TyB and Ron are gonna go into that some more, but just by hearing some of your songs like Get to Youth, like you really care about, you know, giving a message to the young people, just out to the community, just to uplift people and to also set an example. So, I mean, that's really, really a great thing to have as a part of your legacy, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then for my final question, I wanted to ask you, so you've worked with some of the greats, like you mentioned, Dennis Brown and Lady Saw and many, many others. I wanted to ask you, how did working with legends like them, and you're a legend too, how did working with legends like them help to influence your creative process?
You know what? Let me speak about Dennis Brown, because Dennis Brown is my musical idol. You know what I mean? But
Amazing.
I met Dennis Brown while I was in London. I actually went to visit my dad in London, and
Yeah.
and I remember he came. He drove to the restaurant. Cause my dad had a restaurant called Scandals at the time, and you know he came there for food. And so my dad said to him, "Listen, this is my son. I'm going to meet my son Sampalue, who's in record producing." You know what I mean? And so we had a vibe from there. We exchanged numbers, and I told him that when he comes to Jamaica, he can give me a call and we can start doing something. And so I remember when he came, he called me, and I went by Anchor Recording Studio. When I went there, he was there, and so the guy that was the security guy called and called him, and said, "Listen, Sampalue is here and he's waiting on you." And then he came and I tapped. And so the first song we did at that particular day was a song called "Is There a Choice to Be Living in a World Like This?" You know what I mean? And this is my first time working with Dennis Brown. It's my first time. And I gave him this book with this song. And trust me, no one couldn't tell that it was he who wrote the song. because it sounded just the way it did it. Everything was fluent. You know what I mean? And then when he came out, he took off his hat and tipped it to me and said, "Let's work on an album. Let's work on an album." And I said, "Wow, that's good." Because you know what? In the same conversation that me and my dad had when we were in England, he said to me, he said, "Lo, listen, I love TyB Ron, you know, and I think I have about 3 songs, and I never get the album with Dennis Brown." And in my mind, I said, "I want to do this," and then he just said it. You know what I mean? So I didn't have to ask about it. You know what I mean? It was just like that. And so Dennis Brown, that's really the moment. You know, for me, above all things in music, you know what I mean? Given that this was my idol, and I was there, and then we started, and we got close. You know, I used to go to his house, and, you know, we'll vibe together. And, you know, I remember him saying to me, say, "Virgin, there is a lyricist in here. Oh, they can write songs so nice, you know?" But, you know, it's one of the things, is the inspiration, you know, and so when you get inspired, you meditate on what you want to write, and everything just flow like that. You know what I mean? And so we give thanks for that moment.
Yeah, that's just a phenomenal, like, defining moment, you know, and it's just amazing that you had such a musical connection, you know, that you know, something that was an aspiration turned into a meeting that turned into an album that create history, you know. So
and becomes and not only just an album, but we had a great friendship after that.
oh, that's
you know
good too.
Yeah, we had a great friendship, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Ron.
Thank you for having
Yeah, Sampalue. I like to differentiate producer and writer from each other, just because to me a producer is the fellow that sits behind the glass and is the guy sitting at the soundboard, and a writer.
Yes.
What's up?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. And a writer I consider to be more the person that sits and writes the songs. Like, for instance, I was starting one last night. It was an F major 7 and then a D minor 6 first inversion. I started going through the chords on the piano with it. What's your writing process? How's that work for you?
Well, for me, writing is always an inspiration. You know what I mean? I most of the time I'm writing lyrics before anything else. You know what I mean? So I probably be somewhere in New York, you know, smoking, you know, having a nice vibe, and then this inspiration about something, and I say, okay, let me get my pen and a piece of paper. We started. That's where I start. For most of the songs I've written so far has been just lyrics. You know what I mean? Just the lyrics just keep flowing, and then after that we get the musician to because I don't really play like that, but I do instruct. You know what I mean? As to what I want. You know, and so when we write, we try to get the most acclaimed musicians to come. So when we explain what we want, it is put in the right order. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you prefer, producing or writing?
Ah, boy. I mean, the two of them is like, you know, hand in hand, because I love to write. I love to write. I was actually I think it was the night before last night. Someone sent me a beat, you know, and I'm not much into a beat like that, you know what I mean? But I said, send it to me. And so it gave me an inspiration. And so I started writing a song that says, "It is better to be alone than in the wrong company. I salute you, Ibrahim Charori." You know what I mean? I started writing a song about this new wave, this new leader that is inspiring everybody. You know what I mean? Just to be yourself and be independent of everything else that's going on around. You know what I mean? And so I actually finished the song early this morning. No, sorry, yesterday morning. But I haven't gone through it yet to say, okay, let me get this melody down. But I know I have the melody and everything. But you know what I mean, it's fresh in my mind. So, you know, that's one of the nicest thing about writing. You can just be inspired by a moment, and then the song, you know, if you just, and I sometimes I read a lot, you know, and so we can speak about from different perspective, as it relates to somebody else who can just write one-dimensional writer. I can write love song, I can write songs about the world, I can write songs about people have been affected by different things, And to me, that's really a great feeling.
Understandably so, yeah. TyB?
Yeah, Sampalue, I have something that I'm reading out of here. It says, during the early 1990s, you managed and produced former Queen of the Dancehall, Marion Lady Shaw Hall, was scorching hits such as Find a Good Man, Stab Out the Meat, and Give Me the Reason. And besides Lady Shaw, Sampalue also produced songs with Marsha Griffiths, Luciano, Beanie Man, Sanchez, Ghost, and you've already spoken about Dennis Brown. My God, how was the experience? Please tell us about it.
Well, I can speak about the first time I met Lady Star. When we actually met, it was on where should I put it now? I was listening to Lady Star on a cassette, those cassettes. It wasn't CD at the time, and so I was in Canada, and I went to hang out with a few friends of mine, And so I hear this cassette playing, and I hear this female, and I hear Frankie Paul singing. But there was a competition at the time, and Frankie Paul, whatever song Frankie Paul sings, he was singing something equally as good as or even better, And so I said, wow. But she was also rapping and and singing and DJing. I said, oh my God, who's that girl? But she didn't mention her name. So what happened now? She was mentioning a friend of mine, a guy by the name of Toulouse. So when I actually came to Jamaica, I was working one day with Sanchez in the studio, and I came out, for a break where we were on the outside, and I saw Toulouse rode up on a bike. And so I said to him, I said, Toulouse, I said, I was listening to this young lady, and she was talking about Toulouse all the time, and I said, listen, she's a great singer, she's a great rapper, and she's a great DJ. And he said, no, she live right out from my road, and you want her? I would say, yeah, man. And he rode his bike and picked her up and came back, and that was how we met physically. And from the first day we went in the studio, it was it. That was it. Because what I was hearing at the time prior to meeting her was just talent. You know what I mean? So we know that we just need to give her that platform. You know what I mean? It's not too much that we said, okay, you need to change this or change that. We just gave her the platform and said, go ahead. You know what I mean? And so that was one of the biggest moments, with Lady San. And then we've been together for a while, and like we said, we actually produced 2 albums. You know what I mean? We're still friends. Actually, she sent me a message on the night that I actually did a listening. You know what I mean? And that message is very comforting. It's very soothing. She talked about her experience with me as a producer and as a writer. I know she glad that she's here to embrace, you know what I mean, me as a singer now, to see what I'm doing. And, she said, listen, I've listened to your album and it's great. I said, guess what? You need to get your band, you need to get your backup artists. And I see you in Europe working at all these big stages, So I really and truly give thanks for that endorsement, you know what I mean? Because it meant so much. I remember a few days ago, Martha called me. I was driving and Martha called me. And she said, Sampalue, I just hear something that Lady Star said about you. And I said, what is it? And she said, I was just watching Facebook and see how she endorsed the new album. And she said, listen, it is so good for me to cheer or doing that, because most people don't remember where they're coming from, and to see she endorsed like that, talking about our instrument and it was in her career, you know what I mean? That's very comforting. And I said, thank you. I said, you know what? I've learned that one good turn deserves another. And she did that for me, you know what I mean? And so, hats off to her again, and to everybody who have supported the transition, to all who have supported not just words, but action, in terms of the musicians who have come together in sometime in a short space of time, and I call and say, listen, I got this to the book for now. I'd like to know that, you know, if you can come and, you know, everybody just turn up and make it, you know, make it what it is today. That album, Unmistakable, I think it is my best work so far. You know what I mean? And I really embrace it. I really appreciate everybody who has been a part of the, you know, the movement.
Yeah, and would I be right in saying that with all the superstars, I could put it that way, that you've worked with, would I be right in saying that the experiences that you got from them also pushed you to come in front of the stage, in front of the mic? I mean, behind the mic, as opposed to producing them?
Listen, I'm telling you, especially, I did some work with Luciano, you know what I mean? I wrote an album for him, and I remember one day there's a song that he had a court case, and so he was freed of all charges. And so the song was Can't Keep a Good Man Down, you know? And so I called him, I was in New York, and I called him and I said, Papa, listen to this song now, this new song we're gonna release, you know? And so I started singing. Evil forces are rising, the wicked keep fighting. And it's a Papa, hold on there. Oh, Papa, you're singing. They said, no, man. They said, listen, man, look here. If you walk, sing. If you run, sing. If you jump, sing. If you exercise, just do everything, because trust me, you're singing right now. And like I can say, Lucy, well, if I love and respect, man, even as you were doing the work, you were there encouraging me at the same time, you know, to come in front of the mic and, you know, and be Sampalue as a singer. And so, you know, well, if I respect you, you know.
Mm-hmm. So, so I think if I were in your shoes, I would be, you know, honored to use those experiences, because the celebrities that I've mentioned are all top world-class, you know, reggae and dancehall artists. So I think I doff my hat to you for having that kind of moving from the other side to this side, and then you to be doing great. So I mean, you're doing so good, and I thank you.
Let me tell you something, though, just to add to that. I remember when I was doing my first album, I actually left the hard drive in the studio, and when I went back in there, Robbie was actually there, right? And so Robbie, which is the bass player, said to me, Sampalue, how long you can do that something here? I mean, I said, why? I said, no, man, but this your song with them, man, and it sounds like you're singing, you know, and you're singing the right way. I said, you know, Mr. Boy, it's a long time, but, you know, sometimes you just want to do something. And he said, no, but you know, your career would have been so big, and look how much money you waste for other people. And I say, you know what? I don't consider it a waste, because it is, to me, it is giving someone else that opportunity. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it becomes a part of my story. Even now, speaking to you, I can speak of some of those incidents, you know what I mean? And so, to me, when the time has come full circle, you know what I mean? I'm glad that we embraced everybody who was in the fold as artists, and all those artists who are embracing me in the fold now as an artist, you know what I mean? Because one of the nicest things now is to when I'm out in the streets and some people say, well, me artist, it take me a while to, because now when you're there, well, I'm a producer, you know what I mean? I don't hear, well, I'm an artist, you know, sometimes it honestly feels great, you know what I mean? Yeah, honestly feels good.
Awesome, bless it, yeah. Petraa.
That's amazing, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the album. Like, what is your favorite track on the Unmistakable album?
Boy, you know, that's part about favorite is I don't know. I honestly don't know, because there's so many songs. I'm telling you, each song is just, when you listen to the album, you're expecting to hear something that is not at the level at the song before, and that is not possible. Every time you hear something, is either the same level or it's greater. You know what I mean? But there are songs that like I said, the song that says human beings, you know what I mean? Given the fact that we're talking about people and how, you know, we'd love to see people treating other people. Because when I was looking at the the television about the incident in Gaza at the time, I said to a friend of mine, I said, you know what? I've been living in America for a while, and I've seen, you know, how these people treat animals. You know, they're lovers of dog. I myself have 2 dogs. You know what I mean? But I say, you know how funny it is. If these people that we see in Gaza were dogs, you would never bomb them like that. And listen, I don't belong to no side, because I'm not taking no side. I'm just taking, I'm taking my point of view from a human being perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to steer ourselves better than that. You know what I mean? We have to steer ourselves treating people as people, you know, and not less than what they are. You know what I mean? And it's not just in Gaza, it's in Ukraine, it's big, it's basically so many different places in Africa. You know what I mean? We are seeing, and we, you know, and it is so sad. You know what I mean? So that would be one of my songs that I really and truly would give the edge to, as, you know, just for the topic. You know what I mean? But there's also other songs that there's a cover from a song that my father did originally. It's called All I Have Is Love. It's Gregory's first #1 that was produced by my dad. And so I covered it. You know what I mean? And I covered it with a young lady by the name of Carrie Lopez. You know, and that song is one of the songs that has been enjoying you know, the waves of the radio. I'm in Jamaica, you know, there's one with Tifa called Begging. We did it.
I love that song.
Yeah. Begging, man. Begging is begging to be a hit right now, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's begging to, I mean, it's very nice. And funny enough, I didn't know of the song. I didn't know of the song. She actually said, listen, I want us to do this song. And so when I listened to it, I said, wow. And so I walked in the studio, I think about a few days before that, and I was listening to a kind of ska beat, and I said, you know what, let me do something similar to this. You know, but we had to it, and we make sure that it was a little ska with a little Spanish version, you know, a Spanish flavor, I should say. You know, when you listen to the song, it is like it is probably about 3 different markets together in that one song. You know what I mean? So I am so glad that you love it. You know?
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. That's definitely one of my songs that I definitely have been bumping in the car.
Begging, reaching out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Most definitely. Thank
give
you.
thanks, man. Give thanks, you know.
And then like my final question, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like reggae still has the power to move the world, to change the world? Like, because I'm just gonna give you a little bit of background on that, because the way reggae music is positioned nowadays, I feel like the markets are trying to compete and compare reggae to, say, Afrobeat. You know, like, I feel like the young people, they're not really gravitating towards the music the way they were. And I'm talking like conscious reggae. I'm talking separately from dancehall. So I'm just curious, in your mind, your words, do you feel like reggae still has the power to change the world in that way?
I know that reggae has the power, because 99% of the songs in when they listen to a reggae song is always something positive. What we need though, this is what we need though. We need people like you and you know, and the panel to constantly inviting people like me, you know what I mean, on this platform to speak about the songs, and for the radio DJs to play the songs, you know what I mean? Because you know, there's a lot of nice reggae songs, they're good reggae songs, but they're not being played, and it's because there's a great imbalance in whatever is played against reggae. You know what I mean? So let us the dancehall and all the other genres. You know what I mean? And then the younger kids now is more into dancehall and Afrobeat. But if you play the songs the way they play these these dancehall and these Afrobeat songs, then it's gonna be because if you go back to when Sizzla and Lucia was a part of it, all the songs that were being played at that time was being punched up by the people who were listening to it. So we have to make sure that we keep the message rotating, we keep the message positive, we keep the message pronounced, into the people's face, into their ears. You know what I mean? Because one thing I always say is that people hear without trying to hear anything. You know what I mean? Hearing is just compulsive. You can't turn off your hearing. You know what I mean? Well, you can close your eyes and all of these things. So I want to use this word, if we bombard their hearing with the right songs, they will hold on it, they will see it as something that, worth listening to. You know what I mean? But it needs to get that support, And so reggae is always, man. If you go back to Bob Marley, man, there's music that is there, Like we said, like Bob said, feed it to the one drop and we still have time to rock. You know what I mean? You have to be able to listen to what is being said and still feel a vibe. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I know that if people like you give us the platform, give some other artists a platform and play this music, it is gonna be just the same as it was before. You know what I mean? Yeah, I truly believe that.
Most definitely. Thank you for your words and your perspective on it, because I totally agree with you. Reggae is such a powerful sound. We've seen the impact it still has on today's society and culture with the influence of Bob Marley, not just Bob Marley alone, like the Dennis Browns and the Peter Toshes, the Marcia Griffiths. There's so many. So I definitely feel like reggae has a lot of power. I just feel like reggae does need a revival, and at the same time, like you said, it needs an equal fair shot. Reggae is not given the same amount of airplay, like you mentioned, as other genres. So if it would be as powerful, So thank you for highlighting that.
Agree.
Yeah. So Ron, did you want to close out anything?
Yeah. Before we close up the show, can you tell us what's next for Sampalue? Tours, visuals, or maybe anything revolutionary writing? What's up for you next?
Well, I am actually going in America in the next few weeks. I want to go and do some radio promotion. You know what I mean? I also want to go in the Caribbean just to do radio promotion, because I know that it's part of exactly what we are doing now is what is needed to create this awareness about what we're doing. You know what I mean? About the release of the album too. And so I am more into promoting the record right now. And so anything that comes after, I will appreciate. And I know it's going to be all positive, you know what I mean? And so you just have to go out and create the awareness. You have to go out and speak about it. And most importantly, having the songs played that people can listen to what you have said, or what you were saying, or what you are saying. You know what I mean? We just have to get it like that. That's the biggest part of me going forward now, just to get these songs out there, just to not just to like an interview like this, but I want to be in that space. I want to fly in that space. I want to go to St. Martin, St. Lucia. I want to be on the radio live and direct, you know what I mean? Because that is very impactful,
Yeah, absolutely. TYB?
Yes, thank you for coming on the show. I mean, I agree with that. I thank Petraa for that question and your response. I mean, yes, there has been a space to be playing reggae, and and that's what we do here. Honestly speaking, we dedicate equal time to all forms of the genres that we play here, but we give also much credence to the old, the new tracks that have come out. As a matter of fact, the Caribbean Flavor this afternoon by DJ Mr. Marcus was dedicated for reggae, and not to withstand that. There's also I would like to slip this one in. A couple of weeks ago, I sat in for DJ Mr. Marcus, and I said, you know what? We don't even hear about calypso or soca. and soca is dying. And you know what? I said, I don't hear about soca artists or calypso artists mounting the stages around the globe to receive awards and stuff like that. And you know what's happening? And then I think it fell on one artist from Antigua's ears, and then he sent he had written a song about exactly what I was talking about, that we shouldn't allow soca to die. And it's the same thing. We shouldn't allow reggae to go that way, because reggae has influenced so many lives, so many political aspirations. And if you take Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and all the greats, they've done well. So we cannot sit back and say that, okay, well, the new genres of music is coming on the stage, so we have to throw that out. No, you have to walk. I mean, you have to crawl before you walk. You have to crawl before you walk. We cannot, forget about the fact that reggae music is there. It's a power engine for us all universally. You can get reggae music in Arabic music. I was stunned. There was a symphony orchestra in, I think, Saudi Arabia. They were playing one drop. They were playing one. It's a whole about. Yes, it was. You saw that, right? It was about 30 people playing this, and they were singing one drop. And I was saying, oh my God! So you can get reggae everywhere around the globe. So we are going to continue to promote the music, and then we are going to promote your music as well, 24/7. Trust me, this is what it is all about. This station was created just for this, to come and speak about genres of music, producers like you, and managers and public. We've had so many people coming to explain the journey in terms of the music, irrespective of what the person is or where the person is from. So I mean, it's a platform. This is your radio station to come back anytime you want.
Well, I'm looking forward to Ghana sometime this year. I mean, I really want to come to Ghana. I have a friend of mine, Christian, there, who's living there now. And so we are good friends. And I spoke to him today. Today is actually it's Solar Day. I mean, so I want to say big up Christian there. And this day I want to also say big up to my dad, Phil Brett, who is one of the columns of reggae music. And to all the people who has contributed to being positive, you know what I mean? And so we want to say thanks for the platform, for allowing me to speak and to express myself. And I want to say thank you before even the time comes, when I know this is the time anyway, for you to be playing my songs and giving me all the energy so I can come in Africa as an artist and need to perform for the people there. There's a song on an album called Democracy. I want you to play it. Democracy is one of, this is what we are talking about now. People forcing, and to me, democracy is just a word. It's not real. You know what I mean? So while some people teach about democracy, they are practicing something different. You know what I mean? And so please, that song is very close to my heart also, and close to what is happening in the world today. And so I want to say enough respect.
I was listening to that earlier today.
Yeah.
And also, I would like to use this opportunity to thank Zwan and Elite Music, and for creating the space for both of us to come and share your thoughts. And we've enjoyed the program. Petraa?
Most definitely, yes. It's definitely been a pleasure to have you here, Sampalue, just to kind of hear about your what made you fall in love with the music, the legacy that you built, how you're passing on this generational wealth of music, not only just that what your dad bestowed upon you, but also to what you're bestowing upon your son, but to also what you're bestowing upon the world. You're inspiring many generations, so continue to write great music, sing great songs, and continue to empower the world with reggae music, So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And I'll keep doing that with every last bit that I am. I want to make a positive impact, you know what I mean? Because it's so easy to be negative, and people tend to follow the negative things. I don't know why, but you know what I mean? you know, with people like you, you know, the pilot who is going to be playing reggae music like that, all the positive aspects of reggae. We want to say thank you for embracing the culture. Thank you for making sure that we give other people a chance to listen to something different that is positive also. You know what I mean? Yes.
Yeah.
Very important and respect to everybody. Salute.
Thank you.
Much blessings and respect. So any final words, Ron and TYB? Anything you guys want to say?
I'll just repeat what you're saying. Thank you very much. It's great having you on the show here. And I know that TYB is going to ask you to inform us on how to get a hold of you.
That's right. Ron.
everything is Sampalue. So it's SAMPALUE. And it's on Instagram, it's Facebook, it's TikTok, it's everywhere. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ron knows exactly what I'm going to do.
Ron knows the program.
That's right. Yeah, yes, Petraa.
So love and respect to each and every one, yeah? Love and respect to each and every one, and continue doing what you're doing, you know what I mean? Yes, I really appreciate being here, you know, on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Again,
thank you. So yes, everybody, thank you for joining us on the Highway 6 to Africa with the wonderful Sampalue, you know. And yeah, you definitely be sure to follow him, check out all his socials, and definitely check out that wonderful album, Unmistakable. Okay, definitely check it out. Amazing songs on there. And you can find us back here next week, myself, the wonderful Ron Malinga, the wonderful TYB, and the whole Love Bay family. You'll find us here every single Friday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. So sending you guys lots of love. You guys have a fantastic, wonderful Saturday. And yeah, thank you for joining us on the Highway 6 to Africa. Bye, Love Bay family.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Till next time.
Yeah, man.